It was a chilly afternoon when I found myself strolling down Powell Street, the bustle of San Francisco, carrying on around me. The crisp air nipped at my cheeks, and the soft gray of the sky made everything seem a little more subdued. I didn't venture out as often as I used to. The city had grown busier over the years, and sometimes the noise and chaos felt overwhelming. But on that day, I wanted to walk, to feel the rhythm of the world beyond the walls of my penthouse. As I wandered past storefronts, something glittering in a window caught my eye. A necklace, delicate and exquisite, sat displayed on black velvet. It wasn't ostentatious, but it had a quiet elegance that spoke to me, diamonds that sparkled like frost on a winter morning, set in a design so intricate it seemed almost alive. I stopped, captivated, and leaned closer to the glass, studying its detail. It was beautiful. And in that moment, I wanted to see it up close. The store was sleek and modern, with tall glass doors that shimmered in the light. I hesitated for a moment, glancing down at my reflection in the window. I was dressed plainly, a gray cardigan that had seen better days, sensible slacks, and shoes that were more comfortable than fashionable. My scarf, a favorite of mine, was frayed at the edges. I looked nothing like the clientele I imagined this store catered to. But why should that matter? I had the means to buy that necklace if I wanted to, and surely the salespeople would treat me with the same respect as anyone else. Summoning my courage, I pushed open the door. The warmth of the store enveloped me, along with the faint scent of polished wood and leather. Soft music played in the background, and the light reflected off countless pieces of jewelry, casting tiny rainbows on the walls. For a moment, I felt a sense of wonder, until I noticed the salespeople. 3 of them stood behind the counters, their polished appearances a stark contrast to my own. They were young, impeccably dressed, and beautiful in that effortless way that only youth can achieve. As I stepped inside, their eyes flicked toward me, and I caught the briefest glimmer of disdain before they turned to each other, whispering and giggling softly. My stomach tightened. I approached the counter, my hands clasped tightly in front of me. "Good afternoon," I said politely, my voice soft but steady. I saw the necklace in the window and was wondering if I could take a closer look. One of the women glanced at me, her expression bored. "Which one?" she asked, though her tone made it clear she wasn't interested in helping. "The one with the diamonds," I replied, gesturing toward the display. She exchanged a look with her colleague, who smirked and leaned in to whisper something. The 2 of them stifled laughter, their hands covering their mouths. My face grew warm, but I pretended not to notice. The woman sauntered over to the window display, retrieving the necklace with exaggerated care. She brought it back to the counter and placed it down with a sharp click, her movements lacking the reverence the piece deserved. "This one?" she asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Yes," I said, trying to maintain my composure. I leaned in, studying the necklace's intricate details. It was even more stunning up close. "How much does it cost?" She hesitated, then glanced at her coworker, who stifled another giggle. "It's $52,000, she said, her tone almost mocking. "But I'm not sure it's in your price range." My cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and I felt my hands begin to tremble. "It's very beautiful," I said quietly, not sure what else to say. I could feel their eyes on me, their whispers like tiny daggers. I had never felt so small. I wanted to ask more questions, to show them that I was serious, but their coldness made it impossible. Every word felt like a battle I couldn't win, and the weight of their judgment pressed down on me. "Thank you," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll think about it." As I turned to leave, I heard one of them mutter under her breath, just loud enough for me to catch. "Maybe she should think about buying some decent clothes first." Laughter followed, light and cruel, and my chest tightened as I stepped out into the cold air. The city seemed harsher now, its energy abrasive against the rawness I felt inside. I walked briskly, clutching my scarf as the wind bit at my skin. My mind raced, replaying the encounter over and over. How had I let them make me feel so insignificant? Why had their opinions mattered so much? I didn't get far before the cold air began to sting my face, not from the wind but from the hot tears I hadn't realized were falling. I turned a corner and leaned against a brick wall, trying to catch my breath. My heart pounded, my mind replaying every word, every look, every smirk. How had a simple visit to a jewelry store left me feeling so humiliated? I thought about going home, but the necklace still lingered in my mind. I didn't want it because of its cost or its diamonds, I wanted it because of its beauty. It reminded me of something from another time, another life when beauty was rare, and we treasured it when we found it. After a moment, I wiped my cheeks and turned back toward the store. I wasn't going to let their sneers stop me. I would look at that necklace again, and this time I would hold my ground. The door chimed as I stepped inside for the second time. The warmth was no longer inviting, it felt suffocating, oppressive under the weight of their gazes. The same saleswoman looked up from the counter, her brow furrowing as she saw me again. "Oh," she said, her voice flat. "You're back." I straightened my shoulders, though my hands trembled as I clutched the strap of my handbag. "I wanted to see the necklace again," I said evenly. "I'm still considering it." The saleswoman sighed, glancing at her colleague. "Do you want to handle this?" she asked, her tone laced with annoyance. "Because I'm not wasting my time." The other woman smirked, stepping forward. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she approached me, her movements deliberate and intimidating. "Ma'am," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "we have other customers who might actually buy something. Perhaps you could come back another time." I blinked, caught off guard by her bluntness. "I'm a customer too," I said, though my voice wavered. "I'm serious about this piece." She crossed her arms, her polished nails tapping against her sleeve. "Are you?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Because from where I'm standing, it doesn't look like you can afford to even step foot in here." Her words hit like a slap, and I felt my face flush with heat. "You don't know anything about me," I said quietly, though my voice trembled. She laughed, a short, sharp sound that made my chest tighten. "I know enough," she said. "Look, maybe this just isn't the right store for you. You might want to try one of the department stores downtown. They have some lovely costume jewelry that might be more your speed." Her colleague chuckled from behind the counter, and my humiliation deepened. I glanced around, hoping someone would step in, but the other employees avoided my gaze, their indifference like a wall between us. "I don't see why I shouldn't be able to look," I said, forcing the words out despite the lump in my throat. "This is a public store." She tilted her head, her smile icy. "You're right, it is. But we also reserve the right to refuse service. And I'm refusing it." I stared at her, stunned. "You're asking me to leave?" "Yes," she said simply. "We have an image to maintain, and frankly, you don't fit it." The room spun for a moment, my embarrassment and anger colliding in a way that left me feeling unsteady. I wanted to argue, to demand an explanation, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I turned and walked out, the sound of their laughter following me like a shadow. The streets felt colder this time, the noise of the city grating against my ears. My heart raced, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Shame, anger, confusion, they all tangled together, leaving me breathless. I kept walking, hoping the motion would steady me, but the memory of their words clung to me like a second skin. "We have an image to maintain." What did that even mean? Did they think I wasn't good enough because of my clothes? Because I didn't look the part? Their judgment stung, but beneath the hurt, something else began to simmer. They had no right to treat anyone that way, no matter how they were dressed. No one deserved to be made to feel small, to be dismissed as though they didn't matter. By the time I reached my penthouse, my legs ached, and my hands were stiff from the cold. The doorman greeted me warmly, his usual cheer a sharp contrast to the cold indifference I had faced just moments earlier. "Good evening, Mrs. Ellis," he said, holding the door open. "Good evening, George," I replied, my voice quieter than usual. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt longer than ever. When the doors opened, the familiar warmth of home enveloped me, but it brought no comfort. Charles was seated in the living room, reading the evening paper. He looked up as I entered, his brow furrowing at my expression. "Edith?" he asked, setting the paper aside. "What's wrong?" I hesitated, unsure of how to explain. Finally, I sank into the armchair across from him, my hands trembling in my lap. "I went into a jewelry store today," I said slowly. "And they humiliated me." His expression darkened, and he leaned forward, his hands resting on his knees. "What happened?" I recounted the events, my voice trembling as I described the way they had judged me, dismissed me, and ultimately asked me to leave. By the time I finished, tears pricked at my eyes, but I blinked them away. "They treated me like I didn't matter," I said softly. "Like I was nothing." Charles's jaw tightened, and a rare flash of anger crossed his face. "That's unacceptable," he said firmly. "No one has the right to treat you, or anyone, like that." I nodded, though the memory still stung. I can't stop thinking about it. About how many other people they must treat that way." That night, I barely slept. The humiliation I had felt at the store burned in my mind, but alongside it, something else had taken root, a determination I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the principle of it. No one deserved to be treated the way I had been, to be judged and dismissed based on their appearance. The next morning, Charles joined me at the breakfast table, his calm demeanor a grounding presence. He had been my partner in every sense of the word for decades, and I knew I could count on him now. "So," he said, setting down his coffee cup and folding his hands neatly on the table, "what's the plan?" I hesitated for a moment, still piecing my thoughts together. "I want to buy the store," I said finally. The words sounded strange out loud, but they felt right. Charles raised an eyebrow, his expression a mix of surprise and approval. "Go on." "I don't just want to buy the necklace," I continued. "I want to buy the entire store. And I want to make sure the people who work there learn a lesson they won't forget." He nodded thoughtfully. "It's a bold move, but I think it's exactly what they need. If you're serious about this, I can have our attorney look into it today." "I am serious," I said firmly. "They need to see that you can't judge a book by its cover. And more than that, I want that store to become something better, a place where people are treated with dignity, no matter who they are." His lips curved into a small smile. "That's why I married you," he said. "You've always been willing to stand up for what's right." By mid-morning, the process was already underway. Charles made a few calls, and within hours, our attorney was reviewing the store's ownership details. It turned out the store was privately owned by a husband and wife duo who had recently started looking for buyers. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. As I waited for the paperwork to be finalized, I found myself reflecting on the life I had built with Charles. We had come from nothing, scraping by in our early years before finally finding success through hard work and perseverance. Even after we had amassed wealth, I had never felt comfortable flaunting it. It seemed wasteful, even unkind, to display wealth when so many had so little. But now, for the first time, I saw an opportunity to use that wealth to make a statement that appearances were deceiving and that kindness should never depend on someone's clothes or status. 2 days later, everything was in place. The store was officially mine. "Are you ready for this?" Charles asked as we prepared to leave the penthouse. He handed me my coat, his expression calm but encouraging. "Yes," I said, smoothing my scarf. "They need to understand the consequences of their actions. And more importantly, they need to understand the importance of respect." When we arrived at the store, the staff were as impeccably dressed as ever, their polished appearances unchanged. The same saleswoman who had mocked me before was standing near the counter, chatting with a colleague. When she saw me, her smile faltered, and I could see the flicker of recognition in her eyes. "Oh," she said, her tone flat. "You're back." I approached the counter, my steps steady and deliberate. "Good morning," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I'm here to pick up something." Her brow furrowed. "Pick up what?" The keys, I replied, handing her the paperwork that confirmed my ownership of the store. She took the papers, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief as she scanned the contents. "What is this?" she asked, her voice rising slightly. "It's exactly what it looks like," I said. "I bought the store." The room fell silent as the other employees turned to stare. The saleswoman's colleague leaned over her shoulder, his eyes widening as he read the documents. "You bought the store?" she repeated, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Yes," I said simply. "And as the new owner, I'm here to make some changes." The manager emerged from the back office, his face pale as he took in the scene. I handed him a copy of the paperwork and explained the situation. "Effective immediately," I said, "this store will operate under new management. There will also be a thorough review of employee conduct." My gaze shifted to the saleswoman who had mocked me. "As for you," I said, my voice steady, "your behavior was unacceptable, and I can't have someone like you representing this store. Consider this your last day." Her face flushed, her mouth opening and closing as though searching for a response. "You can't be serious," she stammered. "I am," I said firmly. "You treated me, and likely others, with disdain because of how we looked. That ends today." I turned to the rest of the staff, my expression softening slightly. "For those of you willing to embrace a new standard of respect and professionalism, there will be opportunities for growth. But make no mistake, this store will change." The room was silent, the weight of my words settling over the employees. The manager nodded, his expression resigned but understanding. The saleswoman gathered her things and left without another word, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. As I stood in the center of the store, a sense of calm washed over me. The humiliation I had felt was gone, replaced by a quiet resolve. I had taken a moment of pain and turned it into an opportunity to create something better. And as I walked out the door, the necklace in my bag and the keys to the store in my hand, I knew this was only the beginning. The store felt different the moment the paperwork was signed. It was no longer a place filled with judgment and elitism, it was mine, a canvas for the changes I envisioned. I spent the first few days observing quietly, walking through the aisles and listening to how the remaining employees interacted with customers. Some had the warmth and professionalism I wanted, but others still carried the remnants of the old culture, a sharpness in their tone, a hint of condescension that lingered in their words. I knew change wouldn't happen overnight, but I was determined to see it through. The first step was setting a new tone. I gathered the remaining staff in the sitting area, where customers often sipped complimentary coffee while browsing catalogs. "Thank you all for staying," I began, my voice calm but firm. "I know the past few days have been unsettling, but I want to be clear about where we're headed." The employees sat in silence, their expressions ranging from curiosity to apprehension. "This store will no longer be a place where customers feel judged," I continued. "It will be a place where anyone can walk in, whether they're dressed in a suit or a cardigan, and be treated with respect. If that's something you can't align with, I encourage you to part ways now." No one spoke, though I noticed a few uneasy glances exchanged among the staff. I let the silence linger for a moment before continuing. "For those of you who stay, I will provide training to help you succeed. We'll focus on customer service, empathy, and professionalism. This isn't just about selling jewelry, it's about creating an experience that makes people feel valued." I paused, looking around the room. This is a second chance for the store, and for all of us. Let's make it count. The training sessions began the following week. I brought in a consultant to lead workshops on communication and implicit bias, ensuring the employees understood how their actions and words shaped the customer experience. The sessions were interactive, filled with role-playing exercises and discussions that forced everyone to reflect on their assumptions. At first, there was resistance. Some employees were defensive, insisting they hadn't done anything wrong. But as the sessions progressed, I saw a shift. They began to listen, to engage, to challenge their own preconceptions. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I also worked on transforming the physical space of the store. The harsh, sterile lighting was replaced with softer, warmer tones, making the space feel inviting rather than intimidating. We added comfortable seating areas and a children's play corner so families could shop without stress. A display near the entrance featured more affordable pieces, ensuring there was something for every budget. The necklace that had started it all remained in a central display case, a silent reminder of the moment that had sparked this transformation. I often caught customers admiring it, their faces lighting up as they took in its beauty. It wasn't just a necklace, it was a symbol of what the store could be. One afternoon, a young woman walked into the store, her toddler clutching her hand. She wore a simple dress and sneakers, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She approached the counter hesitantly, glancing at the displays with wide eyes. "Can I help you?" one of the newly trained employees asked, her tone warm and inviting. The woman smiled nervously. "I'm looking for a gift," she said. "Something special, but not too expensive." Of course, the employee replied, guiding her to a display of pendants. "We have some lovely options here. Let me know if you'd like to see anything up close." I watched the exchange from a distance, my heart swelling with pride. This was exactly what I had hoped for, a store where anyone could feel welcome, where the experience was as meaningful as the purchase itself. Later, as the young woman left with a small, elegantly wrapped box, she caught my eye and smiled. "Thank you," she said softly. "This was a really nice experience." "You're welcome," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. At home that evening, I shared the story with Charles over dinner. He listened attentively, his smile growing as I spoke. "You've done something incredible, Edith," he said. "You've taken a place that made you feel small and turned it into something that uplifts people." I nodded, though a part of me still felt the weight of the journey. "It's not just about the store," I said. "It's about the lesson. We can't let appearances define how we treat people. We're all more than what's on the surface." The next morning, I arrived at the store early, taking a moment to admire the changes we had made. The staff greeted me warmly, their smiles genuine, and I felt a sense of hope I hadn't felt in years. This was no longer just a jewelry store, it was a reflection of the values I held dear. And as I walked through the aisles, I knew that the journey wasn't over. There was still work to be done, still lessons to be learned. But for the first time, I felt certain that we were on the right path. The weeks that followed the transformation of the store brought a sense of fulfillment I hadn't anticipated. Every day felt like a small victory, not just for the store, but for the people who walked through its doors. Customers lingered longer, employees engaged with more genuine warmth, and the space itself seemed to hum with a new energy. What had once been a cold and exclusive environment now felt alive, welcoming, and human. I spent most mornings at the store, observing quietly as customers browsed and employees worked. Occasionally, I stepped in to help, sharing stories about the pieces on display or listening to the dreams behind a purchase. It was in those moments, connecting with people on a personal level, that I felt the weight of my efforts was worth it. One day, as I walked the aisles, I overheard a conversation between an employee and a customer. The woman, dressed in a simple blouse and slacks, was admiring a pair of earrings, but hesitated when she saw the price. "They're beautiful," she said softly. "But I don't think I can afford them right now." The employee smiled kindly. "They are lovely," she said. "And when you're ready, we'll be here. No rush." The woman looked relieved, her shoulders relaxing as she set the earrings down gently. "Thank you," she said, her voice sincere. "I appreciate that." Watching the exchange, I felt a swell of pride. It was a small moment, but it captured the essence of what I had worked so hard to achieve. The store was no longer just a business, it was a place where people felt seen, valued, and respected. As the store flourished, I began thinking about its future. I knew I wouldn't always be able to oversee it personally, but I wanted to ensure that the values I had instilled would endure. One evening, I sat down with Charles and shared my thoughts. "I want the store to be more than just a business," I said. "I want it to stand for something, a legacy of kindness and respect." He nodded, his expression thoughtful. What do you have in mind? I'd like to set up a foundation, I said. Something that supports local artisans, provides scholarships for aspiring jewelers, and gives back to the community. And I want the store to reflect that mission. Charles smiled, his pride evident. That sounds like a perfect way to honor everything you've built. The idea took shape quickly, and within weeks, the foundation was established. The store became not just a place to buy jewelry, but a hub for community events and initiatives. We hosted workshops for local artists, sponsored design competitions, and partnered with charities to support causes that mattered. The changes resonated far beyond the walls of the store. Customers became regulars, drawn not just by the jewelry, but by the sense of belonging the store offered. Employees took pride in their work, knowing they were part of something meaningful. One afternoon, as I walked through the store, I noticed an elderly man standing near the central display case, where the diamond necklace still gleamed under the soft lighting. He looked at it for a long time before turning to me. "It's beautiful," he said, his voice tinged with admiration. "What's the story behind it?" I smiled, stepping closer. "This piece is what started it all," I said. "It reminded me that beauty can inspire us to be better. It taught me that sometimes, the things we create can have a bigger impact than we realize." He nodded, his gaze lingering on the necklace. "And it's clear you've created something truly special here." His words stayed with me long after he left. They were a reminder of how far the store had come, and how far I had come. What had started as a moment of humiliation had grown into something much larger, a testament to the power of standing up for one's values. On the anniversary of the store's reopening, we held a celebration, inviting customers, employees, and community members to join us. The atmosphere was festive, filled with laughter, music, and the warmth of shared connections. As I looked around the room, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the people who had supported me, for the lessons I had learned, and for the opportunity to make a difference. Charles stood by my side, his hand resting gently on mine. "You've done something incredible, Edith," he said, his voice soft. "This isn't just a store, it's a legacy." I smiled, my eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's more than I ever imagined," I said. "And it's just the beginning." As the evening came to a close, I stood near the entrance, watching as guests filtered out, their faces alight with joy. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, the pain, the challenges, and the growth. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. And as I locked the doors for the night, the necklace still glimmering in its place, I knew that the lessons I had learned would stay with me forever, the importance of kindness, the power of perseverance, and the unshakable truth that no one should ever be judged by their appearance. If you've enjoyed my story, please leave your comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, where your support means the world to me. I look forward to bringing you more stories that inspires growth, joy, and purpose. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.